Welcome, LifeBlood. This is George G, and the time is right. Welcome to today's guest, strong and powerful Andy McDowell. Andy, are you ready to do this?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Let's go. Andy is an engineer by trade and a creative by nature. He spent 22 years with the Boeing Company before becoming an entrepreneur in the aerospace design consulting business. Today, he's helping people generate value in their personal and professional lives. He is the host of the Generate Your Value podcast, and he's a frequent contributor to Brains Magazine. Andy, excited to have you on. Tell us a little bit about your personal life, some more about your work, and why you do what you do.
Personal life. Eldest son of two sons of Ann and Dave McDowell. Grew up in the Northeast, moved around quite a bit. In the elementary school days, my dad was getting promoted in the corporate world and on the sales side. You always got to do territory or bigger territory every time I got promoted. So moved around quite a bit until they realized the impact it was making. My dad was still getting promotions and he started turning them down, going, nope, I want my sons to stay one spot through junior and senior high school. And so after high school, moved down to Atlanta, attend Georgia Tech and Georgia State universities, and eventually made my way into the aviation world. You know, people ask me how would you describe your career? I say that I've seen many flavors of entrepreneurship. I was an employee of entrepreneurs, my first two go arounds, and then one of them got gobbled up by this company called Boeing. And then I became an entrepreneur within a large corporation, starting a consulting practice from scratch. And then got laid off because of the 737 crisis and started my own coaching business, where I am truly now an entrepreneur by the common definition of what an entrepreneur is. So been an interesting a journey, have seen the world, and living my why out loud today.
I love it. And what is that why today?
One word: service. It's about helping others to lead their best life. How can you be successful and then every single day you're filled with joy and happiness while you're going along and doing that? So one of the models I use in my coaching is around three simple words: be, do, and have. And if I were to throw a simple algebra equation at you of x plus y equals z, which of those three words would you plug in for x? What would you plug in for y? What would you plug in for z? And what society and Hollywood wants you to do is to say that do plus have equals be. You do all these things in the business world to become successful, then you get to have these things like Lamborghinis and mansions and second homes and whatnot in your life, and then you get to be somebody in the world, meaning the celebrity status, get to show off your wares and so forth. But we all know that there's a lot of unhappy people that have lived that equation. So what I like to do is to coach people to scramble those words and have your equation be plus do equals have. Be a certain way in the world. What are your values? What are your morals? Who do you want to be in the present moment in the world? And then go do things, whether it's through your career or your personal life or whatever, that align with how you want to be in this world. And the end result on the right-hand side of the equation after the equal sign is you get to have joy, happiness every single day and be successful as you define it for yourself. And that's what I try and impress upon my clients and in my podcast is concentrate on that equation for your life.
I love it. I'm so glad that you answered the algebra equation, because I thought you were actually going to ask me to do algebra on a podcast, and we were going to have a pretty awkward.
I wouldn't do that to you this early in the morning on a weekday.
Thank God. That's so funny. I think that's awesome. B plus do equals have. who do you want to be? Figure out, think, and take the time to think about how you want to be in the world.
Do you want to
And
lead an intentional life? If you do, then you need to answer that question and be introspective and say, who do I want to be in this world?
I can't
What's your
imagine there's too
brand?
many people that really don't want that. Is it that we're just so caught up in doing our thing, or just in just being carried along by the forces that we don't stop to do that?
Yeah. So you and I were talking before you hit the record button about how life overlaps business. So let's take a business strategy tact with this, right? Everybody wants to be that, but nobody wants to sit down and develop a strategy around it because that means you have to be introspective. They'd rather sit in the quote tactics of their life, just sort of managing their life and their processes, and they're not really sitting down at any point in the 365 days of a year with a cup of coffee or glass of water or whatever your favorite drink is in some quiet and think about these important questions for their life.
I'd rather think about the tactics. So it's like, okay, how do I become more efficient? How do I do this or do
How do
that?
I get the kids to soccer practice? You know, how am I going to solve this problem at work today? How am I going to get a date for the weekend?
More
Those are
just
tactics. That's process. That's management, right? That's in the business world, that's the middle core of the business. But tactics support strategy. And if you're not thinking about these things, then the analogy I use with my clients is you're in the ocean. Are you in a rubber dinghy or are you in a motorboat and a sailboat? So if you're just sitting in the tactics, then you're in the rubber boat. You might have a small oar, but you're allowing the world to just sort of
hmm.
move you around. You're just managing the processes of where that dinghy is going in the ocean, versus if you're being introspective and strategic, if you will, in your life, then you're in a motorboat or a sailboat. You've got a destination in mind to how you want to be in this world, and you're setting a course, and you're being intentional with your life, and you're making headway towards whatever you define success for yourself to be.
What does that require? Requires ownership.
Are you the CEO of your life? That's my favorite phrase for my clients. Are you the CEO of your life? You've got, but what is a CEO, right? You got this business and you have some resources, and you're trying to decide the best use of these resources to achieve the goals and success of the company. Well, why can't you use that same structure for your own life? What's your biggest resource in your life? Time. At the very least, it's time. So what are you doing with your time? What are you doing with that resource to achieve the goal of joy, happiness, and success in your life? And once again, we have another business overlap, right? Where we can take life things and business things and pull from one side of that equation and use it in your life, or take life things and pull it over and apply it to a business.
Do people resist this because once they actually start thinking about this, it's like, oh, this is, I'm going to have to do it every day. I'm going to have to work at this.
Yeah. It gets into one of my favorite subjects, which I talk a lot about on the podcast with my clients, is love versus fear. Fear is easy because it keeps you in your comfort zone. You can live in those tactics every single day because you're either afraid to look at yourself in the mirror, or you're afraid of abundance in your life, or you're afraid of something. Something is stopping you or disrupting your life with fear, or you have the courage to push through the fear and live in a state of love, self-love, and say, this is what I want from my life. I used to have a sign in my office at Boeing that everybody could see when they walked in, because I wanted that constant message in front of them, which said, best way to predict the future is to create it. So how are you creating your future? Where's the creativity in your life? Are you thinking about these things? And creativity is based out of love. Love is the engine for creativity. So if you've done the inner work to have self-love, then it becomes easy for you to sit down and use creativity to think, quote, strategically in your life and start developing a plan of action to create the life that you want for yourself. Going back to be, do, have, how am I going to be in this world? What things am I going to do that align with my being? And then I get to have joy, happiness, and success in my life.
The term self-care has been on the tip of everybody's tongue lately, at least it seems like it has. But that's different than self-love, or maybe it's not. Do most people love
Mhm.
themselves, or is it the opposite of that?
Oh, I think everybody wants to love themselves. The question is, have you developed the self-leadership skills to do that? I grew up with very low self-esteem in high school, college, my early 20s was the baggage I brought to my first marriage. But I decided that's not the life I wanted for myself. So hours of therapy, reading self-help books, practicing on myself has led me to a life that I want for myself, to be introspective and develop a strategy. And it's from that effort that I'm able to then, from that self-leadership, to turn around and do that and coach and help others. Because I went through that same exercise. I know the pitfalls from doing it. But if I didn't sit down and say, Andy, this is not good. No, this is not, sitting in divorce court with two kids and a career that's kind of stalled. And so, no, not what I want for myself. So what do I need to do about myself to change that? I'm going to take ownership of it and do something about it.
Are there people that, and I think that the answer is probably yes to any question like this, but is it also that I feel like I don't deserve to be doing
Yes.
something like this? I'm not worthy
Yes.
of it.
Mm-hmm. Self-worth, self-confidence, self-trust. Put all the things that you like to have in the business world with a team and put the word self dash in front of it. Where are you building the foundation for a purposeful life, a happy life, a joyful life? It's about doing all that foundational work. Do you trust yourself? Do you have confidence in yourself? Do you have self ownership? You got to have all those things before you can start uh, fill that bucket, so to speak. You hear that all the time. Fill up your self bucket so that you can then turn around and do that for others. There's a lot of truth in that. But what are you doing if you grew up in a childhood um, where the right circumstances, actions, behaviors didn't provide an example of that for yourself? Well, then you've got to take ownership of your life and go find a means to do it for yourself, since you
Yeah,
didn't have that model.
I think that that makes a lot of sense. And you shared your personal experience of what it took for you to get there, and I
Hmm.
know that I have, not, but some kind of a similar experience of not feeling like I was worthy of doing the things that I really wanted to do. I think it's just a very, very human thing, and these days I also feel like instead of staring ourselves in the mirror and doing that internal work, we choose to fill up everybody else's cup or to busy ourselves
Hmm.
with worrying about the myriad of causes that we're supposed to be worried about on the internet. And that is that is like a kind of like an opiate where I'm hashtagging this and I'm advocating for that. So I don't need to worry about me. I'm not saying it's
Well,
good.
you're trying to get value from somewhere else, right? So business name, podcast name is Generate Your Value. So are you extracting value or are you generating value, right? So if you're not filled with self-love that then enables you to generate value in other people's lives, then you're trying to extract it from other things, whether it be in your relationships or drugs or addictions or video games or sports. You're trying to fill yourself up with joy and happiness and extracting that from other things in the outside world instead of looking for ways to generate it within yourself, so to speak.
I think that's really well said. Extracting value from somewhere else versus you actually generating and creating, um, which is inherently selfish because we need more people to be taking personal responsibility for themselves and
Mm-hmm.
engaging in these personal leadership things. And if we all did that, then a lot of these problems would just take care of themselves.
How do you change the world? One person at a time, and start with yourself.
Yeah. So what is that first step then? Setting the intention, said I'm going
Yes.
to do this.
Um, but it's two or three things, right? It's set an intention, which is basically taking ownership. So you're taking ownership. I have an intention to lead a certain life. And then step two is decide what is that certain life? How do I want to be in this world? And this is the exercise that I take through with my clients is these three steps, right? So do you feel like you have ownership in your life? Are you the CEO of your life, or is life just pushing you around? Let's have a conversation around that first. Two, how do you want to be in this world? Let's get on a whiteboard or something and talk about the values. What words do you want to use to describe the brand, the self brand, so to speak, that you want to have in this world? How do you want to be? And then third, all right, let's be strategic. What do you need to do in all areas, facets of your life? Um, it sort of fits into the Simon Sinek golden circle model, right? Why do what? Your intention and who you want to be is your why. Then what are those values, so forth, that you want to be in this world? That's the how. And then okay, the what things you're going to do in your life strategically that allows you to go after the life that you want for yourself on a daily basis.
I love it. That's not so hard, everybody.
It's easy to talk about, costs a quarter to talk about it. It's the right in business. Here we go once again, the business overlap. In business, you can put a plan together, but it's all about how well you execute that plan that gets you the results that you're looking for. That's the hard part. How do you put a team of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people together to work together to achieve that? You
That's
know,
a trick.
it's it's just a scaling problem, right? Take it down to your personal life. It's just you, but how do you surround yourself with the right people? What are you doing from a self leadership perspective to have the end result of the life that you want for yourself? Just like with a business, we want our business to be a certain way for ourselves. So it just then becomes a scale problem. You already have the skills, you've already done it for yourself. How do you then apply it for a business? If you wanted to start being an entrepreneur, then it just becomes a scaling problem because you already know the brass tacks, as they say, about how to do it. Now it's just how do I execute on a much bigger scale than what I've already done for myself in my life?
Love it. Be plus do equals have.
Hmm.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you? How can they engage with you?
My website is www.generateyourvalue.com. The name of the podcast is Generate Your Value, available on all major platforms. I do it with a co-host. And I do a number of interviews like this, so you can find me on a lot of the major business leadership life type podcasts.
Excellent. If you enjoyed this as much as I did, show Andy your appreciation and share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Check out the Generate Your Value podcast wherever you listen to your podcast, and go to generateyourvalue.com and learn more about what Andy and I have been talking about. And I mean, the more people like Andy can inspire us to take these positive actions and to become the CEO of our own lives, like, the better off we will be, and certainly the world. So thank you again, Andy.
Thank you, George, for the invite, and thank you for generating your value in this world.
Amen. And until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.